All right, we're back. And so the two brothers were both in the church on Easter Sunday, Giuliano and Lorenzo. The priest had lifted the daggers up in the air, and what happened? Well, I'm not going to hurt my little baby. Giuliano was stabbed like 18 times. Giuliano dies. Lorenzo saw what was going on, and Lorenzo ran away. Oh, no. You want the bear? Okay. Take the bear. All right. Well, Lorenzo's going to be okay because the priest, there you go, the priest had missed Lorenzo. Bye bye. Say bye bye, Eve. Oh, you want him? Okay. Say bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Again? No more. All right, so take that. We'll leave the bear. You want the bear? You can take the bear. All right, so let's get back to our story. So, yes, what had happened at that point is that Lorenzo survived, right? The Bahazi only managed to assassinate the younger brother Giuliano, and Lorenzo managed to live, and he was perfectly fine. All right, so that takes us to the next part of our story, how to wrap up Florence. And so real briefly, there isn't much left here, but we're going to go ahead and talk about what happens now in the rest of the history of Florence. So I hope all that was smooth. That's trying to make it funny, of course. But basically, if you didn't get it from the comedy routine, basically you had the two brothers, Lorenzo and Giuliano. They were both in the church on Easter Sunday, and it was on that church period that the Pazzi had tried to kill them all. They really did hire a couple of priests. They managed to kill Giuliano, but not Lorenzo. So as I say, Lorenzo's alive. There's a good image of Lorenzo, and he continues to rule over the family business till 1492. Very important, Lorenzo. Actually, a lot of the art of Michelangelo that we have, you have a video you need to watch on Michelangelo. A lot of the art of his was patronized by Lorenzo. Lorenzo was also a little bit of an artist himself. He's kind of your Renaissance man. That Castiglione thing I told you about, Lorenzo really captured a lot of that. That's why we sometimes call him Il Magnifico, and he has a very strong rulership until he dies in 1492. When he dies, he has a son named Piero, and this is where things quickly go south for the Medici family, because up to now, from Giovanni all the way down, the Medicis have been really solid, but Piero not so much. His son is lazy, his son is irresponsible, and you can imagine in this kind of system, that's not going to go over too well. You're just not going to have effective governing and be able to rule in this kind of, very, backstabbing, figuratively and literally, type of governmental system. And so Piero doesn't do well at all. And actually, in the 1490s, Piero goes bye-bye. He's going to be ostracized, and Lorenzo and the Medicis just become kind of a shell of their former self. So then the question is, well, okay, then who's in charge of Florence, right? As we wrap up our little history of Florence and the Renaissance. If it's the Medicis are no longer that important, the Pazzi are gone. The Pazzi, by the way, were all executed after they attempted to kill the Medici brothers. The Albizzi family is no longer that important. And then what you have is a bit of a power vacuum. And that power vacuum in the 1490s, for a short time period, is filled by someone unexpected. This man named Savonarola. So here's Savonarola, and you look at this image, it's like, whoa, who is this guy? What's the deal? Well, Savonarola was this very fiery monk who enters Florence in the 1490s and basically tells the people in Florence, you have a problem. And the problem is you've left God too much. You've gone too much to the secular world. And therefore, your option in life is to go back to religion, go back to God. And a lot become more religious again. And a lot of people in Florence thought Savonarola was right, and they followed him. And for a short time period in the 1490s, Savonarola basically changed Florence into what we call a theocracy. What does that word theocracy mean? Basically, rule of religious leaders, right? Or rule of religious. And so that's what happens now. Florence is ruled under Savonarola as a theocracy. Now the problem is for Savonarola, the power really goes to his head, and he starts to do things a bit maddening. What does he do? Well, he starts holding bonfires to burn a lot of the Renaissance art. So in like the Plaza de Signoria, you see these kind of fires that he oftentimes set, and they would burn things, the books, the papers, whatever, art. And then he doesn't stop with that. Then Savonarola declares himself above the Pope. At that point, people started to realize that this guy Savonarola has gone a little bit mad with power, and the people rally against him. And then what happens to Savonarola? I'll show you in this same image. It's just a little better quality, and I did that on purpose so you can see it better here. Right over here, you could see they take Savonarola and they burn him right in the Plaza de Signoria. So this is kind of an artistic image of Florence during the Renaissance period. And there it is, Savonarola was executed. So it's weird, Savonarola. It's someone unexpected for that time and that place. But sure enough, he comes in and he convinces enough people for a short time period that this is what they need to do. But again, not that well. If you ever do go to Florence, right in the Plaza de Signoria, right in this very spot, there's a plaque. And on this plaque, you actually have the place where Savonarola was executed. See here it says Savonarola. Here's the word arso, meaning fire, right? Where's the date? There's the date. I don't know how good you are with Roman numerals, but MCCCCXCVIII. All right, what is it? It is 1498, right? So can you imagine doing multiplication with Roman numerals? 1498, right? At this spot, Savonarola was sentenced, right, and executed. So that's what happens to him. So it's just kind of an interesting little story, Savonarola, but he's what happens. Now, after Savonarola is gone, Florence basically reverts back to various families ruling, and that's true for much of Italy. Italy would in fact stay fragmented for a long time. Italy is never going to come together during the Renaissance period. Italy will be fragmented and will not unite as a kingdom, as a unified one singular kingdom. I don't know if a lot of you know this, but until the 1800s AD. Until the mid 1800s. I actually do a lecture on that in my Modern Western Civ class, the History 111 course. I hope a lot of you get a chance to take that class. But yeah, in that course, I got to go through all the modern world, and we eventually get to where Italy becomes Italy. It's a pretty important story, actually. All right, so anyways, that's the history of Florence during the Renaissance. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it interesting. So that's it, and from there, we're going to move on to our next topics. All right, thank you, and don't forget the Michelangelo video you need to watch. All right, thank you. Bye.